Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gita Marie and today we're going to talk about thrifted, secondhand, pre-loved furniture. I grew up using thrift stores as the main way of getting furniture, so I've basically been doing this my entire life. Now I work with environmentalism, sustainability and zero waste and thrift shopping. Any kind of pre-loved secondhand vibe just goes incredibly well with that, because when we buy new things from new, we create demand for more products to be made. But when we buy something that's already in circulation, that's already in the waste stream, that doesn't happen. Let's hear it for the simplifications, but anyway, that is basically the gist of it. That is why I choose secondhand items over new things on any given day. I also have an apartment tour, a home tour, if you want to check out the way that I live and what everything looks like. I feel like eco-maximalism is probably a good way to describe the vibe. You're not destined to have any kind of specific aesthetic just because you thrift or you buy everything secondhand. You can have any kind of aesthetic, any kind of look, any kind of vibe that you want. If you're trying to build your absolute dream home using only secondhand pre-loved items, then listen up now. There are several ways of getting pre-loved furniture, and finding just the ones that work for you is really essential. And it might actually be a combination of several methods, but you have your charity shops, your thrift stores, you have your antique stores and your vintage stores, you have flea markets, estate sales, you have Facebook Marketplace and online secondhand apps and platforms, you have no-buy groups and like swap groups on Facebook, and you have friend swap. And you also have dumpster diving, if that is legal in your country. I've learned over the years, and this might be different for different people, but this is just what works for me, but I've learned over the years to not be too specific in the things that I wish to find. I feel like keeping an open mind will make it a lot more likely that you'll be able to find those things with potential, or the diamond in the rough that just needs a little bit of love. If you're too set on a very specific thing, you're thinking about the thrift store or the antique store or the flea market like you're going into an actual store. And the premise should be different because it's a different experience, because they don't have a catalog of things that they have bought from manufacturers. So if you go into a thrift store with the mindset that you're going into an IKEA, you're gonna be disappointed and you're very likely not gonna find anything that suits you specifically. It's much more likely that you're going to find something if you're keeping an open mind and not being dead set on one specific thing. In thrift stores, that doesn't just go for furniture, it basically goes for everything. You can be lucky and find exactly the thing that you're looking for. But the thing is, if you're only thinking about one specific item, you might end up missing out on a lot of other good stuff. This goes hand in hand with not being too specific, but learn how to see potential. When we go to a flea market or we go into a charity shop, being able to see beyond what is on the shelf or what is on the floor is really, really important. Being able to imagine what something looks like with a clear coat of paint, or with the paint stripped off, or when you remove these drawers, or if you change the upholstery, or like any kind of small alterations. If you're able to see the furniture outside of the context they're presented in, it's much more likely that you'll be able to find that diamond in the rough. And this can be an exercise that we have to practice over time, because when we go into an IKEA, any kind of store, we're often spoon-fed the visual of what something is supposed to look like. In a store display, you're presented with the full image, so you don't have to imagine what this thing would look like, but we kind of have to use our own imaginations when we are in a thrift store. So being mindful of that fact really helps a lot. Bring measurement tape, first of all, and also measure roughly the places that you want filled with secondhand stuff. How much room is there? Write that down and bring those measurements to the thrift store, because it's so frustrating to buy something and it's not returnable. Very often, I've never seen a return policy for a thrift store. So when you buy something that's just a tad too small or a tad too big, that is just incredibly frustrating. Bring your measurements and bring some measuring tape. This is sort of more on the cutie side, but make a day of it. I often say that you have to go to thrift stores often if you want to find the really good things, and that is also true. But a lot of the good thrift stores when it comes to furniture are outside the city. They're not typically located in the city center, which means that it's a little bit more time consuming or resource consuming in general to go out there. So I really recommend making a trip of it, bringing a friend, bringing some family, and just having fun visiting several thrift stores and just vibing with it. I have a video that's only a few months old where me and one of my friends, we go to the biggest thrift store in Denmark and we had such an amazing time. That is the game plan that will secure you the best things. Now, I know this is a concern for a lot of people and I completely get that. If you don't have a car, buying furniture secondhand can be a little bit of a challenge. There are, however, some ways to avoid that. So I don't have a car, I have a bike, and as I said, the majority of the good thrift stores for furniture are located outside the city. I have once in a while, this is especially true when I've bought things from Facebook Marketplace around the city, I've taken the bus with my furniture, I've taken the bus with a huge mirror, I've taken the bus with several dining chairs. It's absolutely possible, it's doable. Is it annoying that you take up so much space? Yes, but it's doable and you don't do it often, so I feel like it's fine. If you're making a day of it and you don't have a car, I recommend renting one. And if you have a driver's license or if you have a friend who has a driver's license, making a day of it, renting a car for the day, I really, really recommend. Me and my friend, we did that when we were touring the thrift stores. If you don't know anyone who has a car and if you don't have a driver's license either, I recommend it because some of the bigger thrift stores, they have delivery. So you can ask if you can have your things delivered for a smaller fee. If you're buying from Facebook Marketplace, I've done this a few times myself, and you don't have a car and you're buying something that's bigger, you can ask the people selling it if they are able to deliver it. I always ask when I buy things on Facebook Marketplace if delivery is possible, of course with everything compensated and for a smaller fee as well, all that stuff. And I have never been told no. This might be one of the most important things, not from a sustainability perspective, but from an aesthetic perspective. You know what? Also from a sustainability perspective, but learn how to spot good quality. Practice that quality eye. I cannot stress enough how much longer good quality materials last compared to poor quality materials. Learning how to distinguish good quality materials from laminated IKEA stuff makes the world of a difference. I don't want to surround myself with materials that will break if I move them. I want things that will outlive me. I want things that are sturdy. Those things are out there. Often they're quite old. You can also find current or like more modern quality materials in thrift stores, but most often you'll find something that is leaning towards an antique. But those things, they just absolutely last. I think one thing that you can practice is learning how to distinguish something that is actually an antique, something that is old, from something that's just manufactured and designed to look old. Guess which one lasts the longest? Now, some diamonds are meant to be left in the rough. Knowing when to pass up on something is just as important as learning when to act and when to get something. Meaning sometimes we see furniture with potential, but then it's important to know what we will realistically get done. Will we realistically make the alteration that will make these things good? Or will it end up being a project that's left half unfinished for years and years, taking up space in your mind, stressing you out because you need to do something, but you're not gonna do it because either you don't have the time, you don't have the interest, you don't have the energy, you don't have the skills for it. Knowing when to pass something up and leave it for someone who will actually do it, just as important as learning how to see the potential. Now, I can't really give tips on secondhand furniture without talking about bed bugs and other types of pests. Now, for full transparency, I have basically never seen or heard of anyone in Denmark, where I live, who has gotten bed bugs from secondhand furniture of any kind. There might be. I just never have heard of it, never have encountered it. So I am not necessarily as cautious as I would encourage people to be if bed bugs or other types of pests in furniture is a bigger issue where you live. I think my advice when it comes to this is just use your common sense, use your gut feeling. If something is left in a dumpster on the street or any way discarded off in a way that feels fishy or suspicious, and you live in an area where bed bugs are quite common, then don't pick it up. If you live in an area where bed bugs are quite common, I would also advise against buying anything with cushions or upholstery or fabric details or soft details of any kind. Then stick to simple, hard furniture and inspect it really thoroughly, not just for bed bugs, but any kind of pests that might be lingering. Sometimes, but not always, there are symptoms of the pests being there. But generally just be cautious and use your common sense. If it's a problem where you live, act accordingly. Bed bugs and their eggs die if they're continuously exposed to heat. I think it's around 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 40-ish degrees Celsius. So if you can expose your products to that level of heat for an elongated period of time, like for an afternoon, if you can put something in a black plastic bag and leave it outside in the sun, that is an option I've seen many people talk about. But obviously this is not really possible for bigger pieces of furniture, which then goes back to the will take the risk of getting these things in your area into account. And I would like to end this on just a little bit of etiquette, because we should know when we can drive a bargain and when we can't. Now, if you're in a thrift store or if you're in a charity shop, I would advise against driving a bargain, against trying to talk down the price. If there has very obviously been done damage to the product, or if the price just seems like really, really high for what it is, you can ask the volunteer cashiers if they agree with the pricing. They most likely will, but I really would advise against trying to drive a bargain at a charity shop where the money goes to charity. Don't drive a bargain with the volunteer personnel. Just leave them be. Leave them alone. If you're at a flea market, if you're at an estate sale, you can drive all the bargains you want. You can talk the price down as much as you want. And when you're dealing with regular people, I also feel like going to flea markets is actually expected. At least the culture might be different depending on where you are. In Denmark, if you go to flea market, it's definitely expected that you try to drive a bargain a little bit. I've never bought something from a flea market where I haven't talked down the price a little bit. And it's supposed to be light and fun, and you're supposed to be a little bit like cheeky and whatnot. Like, it's supposed to be fun. I hate talking to people that are just like being plain rude trying to drive a bargain. That is the worst thing. Like, I am not gonna move an inch if you're being rude to me while you do it. We both know what we're doing. So I'm gonna say a price that's way too low and you're gonna say something that's way too high. And then we end up sort of in the middle there. That is the game. And that is okay for flea markets and estate sales and whatnot. I would like to add, for Facebook Marketplace and similar dealing with private people on secondhand platforms of the sort, that you can drive a bargain when you agree on a price, when you have the first conversation about you wanting to buy this and how much it should cost. You cannot start talking the price down when you have already agreed. I feel like that is just the worst, and I have one specific example that I would love to bring to the table here. So I was selling a bed. I was selling a bed because I was moving. I just wanted to get rid of it, so I sold it ridiculously cheap. We're talking less than 10 quid. It was so ridiculously cheap. And then the buyer came to my house to get it. They only brought half the money we agreed on. They deliberately didn't bring more, so they thought it would be very likely to simply just agree on the new rate. And that is so shitty. In that situation, I actually ended up just saying, okay, whatever, because I really didn't care. But if that happened today with anything I was selling, I would say, too bad, then you have to come back another day. That is... So bargaining etiquette, I feel like, is a very important aspect of this. Sort of ending this on this is absolutely what you really shouldn't be doing. Now, obviously, and I say this in basically every single video at this point, but sustainability is not an aesthetic. And the reason why we're buying secondhand, firstly, because it's cheaper as well. Unless you're buying antiques. I can testify that antiques, indeed, not cheaper. But generally, when we buy pre-loved, it's because we want to save some money and also save on resources. So there is a sustainability perspective here. For me, at least, it's a really big part of it, but sustainability is not an aesthetic. So when we think about what our homes should look like, any kind of style, any kind of color scheme, any kind of aesthetic can be achieved using secondhand, pre-loved and more sustainable methods rather than buying new stuff. That is always the case because sustainability is a method. Anyway, that is all for this video. If you're interested in seeing more of the way that I live, you can subscribe to this channel. That would make my day. And in the description down below, I've also left a link to my eco-maximalism apartment tour. And if you have anything to add, leave a comment down below and let's inspire each other. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day and I will see you guys next time. Take really good care of yourselves. Until then, bye.
Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!